He found her sleeping at the bus stop. The mafia boss gave her his jacket and then his name. The cold was not a feeling anymore. It was a language. It spoke in the shiver that rattled my teeth and the deep, bruising ache in my bones. Rain, driven by a mean November wind, hammered the plexiglass shield of the bus stop, but it was useless. The wind curled under the bench, soaking the thin denim on my legs, turning the concrete beneath me into a slab of ice. I had tucked my feet up under my threadbare hoodie, but I'd lost my shoes 2 days ago, and the skin of my soles was raw. I was huddled beneath the bench, not on it, trying to make myself small. Small was safe, small was invisible. It had been my religion for 6 years. It was late, midnight, or maybe later. The city had blurred into a smear of wet neon and distant sirens. I closed my eyes, trying to pretend the hunger was just a duller version of the cold. I was so tired. If I could just sleep for 10 minutes. Just 10. Then, a new sound cut through the rain. Footsteps. My eyes snapped open. They were slow, heavy, and expensive. Not the hurried splash of someone running for cover or the shuffling steps of the other lost souls who haunted the night. These steps were deliberate. They stopped right in front of my little shelter. I held my breath. My heart hammered against my ribs. A frantic bird in a tiny cage. I saw the shoes first. Black, polished leather, shining even in the wet. They looked impossible. Clean. They cost more than I had earned in the last 6 months. I squeezed my eyes shut. Go away, please, go away. I'm not here. I'm nothing. The footsteps did not move. I felt more than saw. The man crouch. I could smell him. A scent of expensive wool, clean soap, and something dark, like tobacco and spice. It was the smell of warmth, of power. It terrified me. I refused to look. A shadow fell over me, then a great weight settled onto my back, heavy and impossibly warm. My body reacted before my mind. I screamed, a raw, rusty sound, and scrambled backward, crashing my head against the metal leg of the bench. I stared, wild-eyed, at the man. He was tall, standing to his full height now. He wore a perfectly tailored dark suit, soaked through by the rain, but he seemed not to notice. His black hair was slicked back, and his face was all sharp angles and shadows. He was not looking at me like I was trash. He was not looking at me with pity. He was just looking. His eyes were dark and still. He had taken off his suit jacket and draped it over me. It was lying in the puddle I had made, a sacrifice of cashmere to the concrete. "What do you want?" My voice was a croak. He just watched me, his expression unreadable. He made no move toward me. "I don't have anything," I said, my voice gaining a brittle edge. I pushed the jacket away. "I don't want it." He ignored my words and nudged the jacket back toward me with the toe of his expensive shoe. "You're freezing." His voice was low, a rumble like gravel wrapped in velvet. "I'm fine." A flicker of something, annoyance maybe, crossed his face. "You'll be dead by morning. Come with me." I recoiled as if he had struck me. "No." I said it with all the force I had left. I had run from one man offering help only to find it was a cage. I would not trade up. The street was honest. It only wanted to kill me. It did not want to own me first. He studied me for a long moment. I could see the calculation in his eyes. He was deciding if I was worth the trouble. I braced myself, ready to run, to fight, to bite. But he did not move. He simply reached into the inner pocket of his waistcoat, pulled out a thick, black business card, and tossed it onto the jacket. "If you change your mind," he said. Then he turned, without another word, and walked away. The sound of his steady, heavy footsteps was swallowed by the storm. I was alone again, shivering, stunned. My eyes dropped to the jacket. It was heavy, lined with silk, and still held the residual warmth of his body. I pulled it over my shoulders. The sheer weight of it was a comfort. It swallowed me whole, the sleeves hanging a foot past my fingers. It smelled like him, safe, dangerous. I picked up the card. The letters were embossed in stark white against the black. "Nico Romano, the Onyx Club." I knew the name. Everyone in the city knew that name. It was whispered, not spoken. It was not just a man. He was a monster, a king. And he had given me his jacket. I didn't sleep. I sat there, wrapped in the scent of a killer, clutching a piece of cardboard that felt heavier than a gold bar. The jacket was a debt. I knew about debts. My stepfather had lived by them, and he had used me to pay his. I had to return it. The rain finally stopped near dawn, leaving the city gray, bruised, and smelling of wet asphalt. My hunger had returned, and it was no longer a dull ache. It was a clawing, sickening emptiness. Every step I took was a negotiation with gravity. The Onyx Club was not in my part of town. It was uptown, where the buildings were clean and the doorways were not bedrooms. It took me what felt like hours to walk there. The jacket wrapped around me like a shroud. I was a ghost haunting a world I did not belong to. It was maybe 9 a.m. The club was dark, its black marble facade gleaming. Tinted glass doors reflected my own pathetic image back at me. Hollow-eyed, bruised, hair matted to my skull. 2 men in black suits stood at the entrance. Even in the daytime, they were huge. They watched me approach with the kind of bored disinterest reserved for insects. "We're not open," one of them said, not even looking at me, just staring at the street. I'm not here for. I fumbled, my fingers numb. I pulled the jacket tighter. "I'm here to return this." I held out the business card. The man's eyes flicked to the card, then to my face. His boredom vanished, replaced by a sharp, sudden attention. He looked at the jacket, then back at me. "Wait here." He disappeared inside, the dark door hissing shut. I waited. The other guard stared at me, his gaze heavy and suspicious. I felt lightheaded. The world was starting to tilt. The sidewalk felt like it was swaying. I leaned against the cold marble, my knees buckling. I just had to give it back. Then I could go. I could find a shelter, maybe get some soup. I just had to clear the debt. The door hissed open again. The first guard was back, and behind him, Nico Romano. He was in a fresh suit, dark gray this time. His hair perfect. He looked like he had slept on a cloud, not walked through a storm. His dark eyes swept over me, taking in my shaking hands, my chapped lips, the way I clung to the wall. "I came to give this back," I whispered. I tried to shrug the jacket off, but my arms were too heavy. It felt like it was sewn to me. He did not say anything. He just watched me. I'm sorry it got wet." The ground rushed up to meet me. I felt the jarring impact on my knees, and then the world went soft and black. I woke up to the smell of coffee and bacon. My first thought was that I was dead. This must be a very specific and confusing afterlife. My second thought was that I was warm. I opened my eyes. I was not on the street. I was on a sofa, a deep, impossible black leather sofa that I was definitely staining. I sat up too fast, and the room spun violently. "Easy." The voice. His voice. I was in an office. Dark wood, walls of books, a massive desk, and him, Nico Romano, sitting in a leather armchair opposite the sofa, watching me. He had not been there when I fell asleep, had he? "Where am I?" "My office. Upstairs from the club." He nodded to a plate on the low table between us. "Eat." It was a full breakfast: eggs, bacon, toast, a glass of orange juice, and a steaming cup of coffee. I stared at it. It was a trap. Food was never free. "I don't want it," I lied. My stomach screamed, betraying me with a loud, painful-sounding growl. A small, humorless smile touched the corner of his mouth. "Your body disagrees. Eat, or I'll have my men hold you down and feed you. I don't care which." I flinched at the threat. He said it so calmly, he meant it. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the fork. I ate. I did not taste it. I shoveled it into my mouth, my gaze fixed on him, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I ate like a wolf, like a starved animal, and the shame burned in my throat, hotter than the coffee. He just watched. His stillness was more unnerving than any threat. When I was done, I pushed the plate away. my breathing heavy. The sudden rush of calories made me dizzy. "On the floor," he said. "There is a bag. Clothes. Go to the bathroom, through that door, and change." I looked down, a simple black duffel bag. "I can't pay for this." "I am not asking you to," he said, his voice flat. "You are dirty, and you are sitting on $2,000 leather. Be quick." I grabbed the bag and fled to the bathroom. It was larger than my stepfather's entire apartment. Black marble, gold fixtures. I saw myself in the mirror and flinched. The girl looking back was a stranger, a feral creature with matted hair and bruises on her cheekbones. I washed my face and hands, scrubbing until my skin was raw. The clothes in the bag were simple: black sweatpants, a thick gray t-shirt, new socks, new sneakers. They were soft. They were clean. They fit, somehow. When I came back out, he was standing by his desk, looking down at the jacket I'd been wearing. My old hoodie and jeans were gone. "Who are you running from?" he asked, not looking up. "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me," he said, his voice quiet. He finally looked at me. "Someone did this to you." He gestured to my face. "Someone made you sleep at a bus stop." "Who?" "My stepfather," I whispered, the word tasting like ash. "I left. I'm 18. I just left." "And the system?" I looked down. "They don't help. They just put you in places. I'm better off on my own." "You were dying on my street last night," he said. It was not an accusation, just a fact. "I'm trying to survive," I shot back, a spark of anger cutting through the fear. "I don't need anyone's help." "Yes, you do." He walked toward me. I tensed, but he stopped, keeping a respectful distance. "My penthouse is upstairs. There is a guest room. You can stay for one night." I stared at him. "Why?" "Because I am tired of seeing ghosts in my neighborhood." He motioned to the door. "One night, you get clean. You get a full night's sleep in a real bed. Tomorrow, you leave." "And what do you want?" I asked, my voice hard. "Men like you always want something." His dark eyes held mine. There was no warmth in them, but there was no lie either. "I want nothing from you. You can lock the door. In the morning, you will be gone. That is all." I had nowhere else to go. My stepfather's friends were probably looking for me. The shelters were full or dangerous. One night, I could survive one night. I gave a single, jerky nod. He led me out of the office into a private elevator. It opened directly into the penthouse. If the office was luxurious, this was obscene. The walls were glass, floor to ceiling, overlooking the entire city. It was massive, minimalist and cold, all white and black and gray. It was the most beautiful, empty place I had ever seen. He led me down a long hall to a door. "This is the guest room. The bathroom is through there. Do not leave this room." He turned and walked away, his footsteps silent on the marble floor. I stepped inside and locked the door behind me. I leaned against it, my heart pounding. The room was beautiful. A king-sized bed with 100 pillows, a sleek, modern desk, another wall of glass. I walked into the bathroom, a bathtub deep enough to swim in, towels that felt like clouds. I stood under the hot water of the shower until my skin was pink and I could not feel the chill in my bones anymore. I washed my hair 3 times. When I got out, I dried off and put on the clean clothes he had given me. The gray t-shirt was soft. I felt human. On a chair in the corner, someone had laid out the jacket, not my old tattered hoodie, but his jacket, the one from last night. It had been cleaned and dried. I picked it up. It was still so heavy. I buried my face in the wool, breathing in the scent of him, that dark, spicy, clean smell. I examined it. The stitching was perfect. The silk lining was a deep, onyx black. This was not just a jacket, it was armor. I felt a sudden, inexplicable urge to cry. I was safe. For one night, it was a lie, but it was a beautiful one. As I looked around the room, really looked, my stomach tightened. I felt safe, but I also felt exposed. The glass wall had curtains, but they were open. I felt like a specimen in a jar. Then I saw it. In the corner of the ceiling, where the wall met the glass, there was a small, black dome, and in the center of the dome, a tiny, dark lens. A security camera. The air rushed out of my lungs. The warmth from the shower vanished. I was ice, all over again. He was watching me. I knew it. I knew men like him. There was no such thing as a free bed. This was not a rescue. It was an observation. I was a new, interesting pet he had brought home. I wanted to run, to break the window and climb out, but I was dozens of floors up. I was trapped. I was so tired. I walked to the bed, turned my back to the camera, and pulled the covers over my head. I fell asleep. Not because I was safe, in a cage of a different kind. I woke to silence. It was dark outside the glass wall. The city lights were a glittering carpet, miles below. I must have slept for 12, maybe 15 hours. My body ached, but the gnawing hunger was gone. I was thirsty. I slipped out of the bed. The sweatpants and t-shirt were comfortable, but the room was cool. I hesitated, then went to the closet. It was empty, except for a few hangers and a single, crisp, white button-down shirt. It was his. It must have been left here. I pulled it on over the t-shirt. It was huge, falling to my mid-thighs. I rolled the sleeves up and up and up. It smelled like him. Clean, sharp, it felt like armor. I quietly unlocked the guest room door and padded into the massive, dark living room. I was looking for the kitchen, for a glass of water. I found the kitchen, but I stopped, drawn to the wall of glass. The rain had started again, a gentle tapping this time. I stood there, watching the lights, feeling small, clutching the sleeves of his shirt. "You're awake." I gasped and spun around. He was there, leaning against the doorframe of what must have been his own room. He was not in a suit. He wore simple black pants and a dark t-shirt that fit him in a way that was, in itself, an intimidation. He was holding a glass of water. We just stared at each other. The silence in the penthouse was absolute, broken only by the rain. His eyes traveled from my face, down to the white shirt I was swimming in, then back to my face. He did not smile. He did not frown. I froze, waiting for the anger. I had stolen his shirt. I had left my room. He walked toward me, and I took an involuntary step back. He stopped, a few feet away. He held out the glass of water. My hand was trembling as I took it. Our fingers did not touch, but I felt the warmth from his skin. I drank the water, my eyes never leaving his. I finished it and lowered the glass. My voice was a whisper, hoarse from sleep and disuse. "Why are you helping me?" He looked at me for a long time, and he was not looking at my body or my bruises or the stolen shirt. He was looking at me. It felt like he was seeing every scar, every fear, every dark corner of my mind. It was the most terrifying and most grounding feeling I had ever had. He reached out, slowly, as if not to spook a wild animal. He did not touch me. He just tucked a strand of my damp hair behind my ear. His fingers brushed my skin for a split second. "'Cause someone should have." I woke up to the smell of lemons. For a moment, I was suspended in the softest, quietest place I had ever been. The sheets were thick and smooth, the mattress held me like a cloud, and the scent of lemon polish and fresh linens filled the air. I was warm. I was safe. Then I opened my eyes, and the fear returned so fast it stole my breath. The glass wall, the penthouse, and the man, the camera. I sat bolt upright, clutching the heavy comforter to my chest. The white shirt he had given me was tangled around my waist. The room was bright with morning light, the city already awake and moving, miles below. I was alone. I checked the door, still locked from the inside. On the sleek, dark wood desk near the window, a tray was waiting. It had not been there when I fell asleep. A silver pot steamed gently, smelling of fresh coffee. There was a plate of pastries, a bowl of fruit, a glass of juice. My stomach growled, but I stared at the tray with suspicion. Had he come in? A chill ran down my spine. I looked at the lock. It was a simple deadbolt, but a man like him. In a house like this, he had a key. He had come in while I slept, left the food, and watched me. I threw the covers off and ran to the bathroom, locking that door, too. I splashed cold water on my face, my heart hammering. I had to get out. I had stayed my one night, and the deal was done. When I stepped out of the bathroom, I saw the clothes. They were laid out on the bed, perfectly folded. Not the sweatpants from yesterday. These were new. A pair of dark, simple jeans, a soft cashmere sweater in a deep forest green, a bra, underwear, thick wool socks. I touched the jeans. They looked small. They looked my size. I held them up to my waist. They were exactly my size. The camera in the corner seemed to wink at me. He had not just watched me. He had studied me. He had assessed me like a piece of livestock, guessing my measurements. The intimacy of it felt like a violation. The kindness of it felt like a trap. I put them on. I had to. My old clothes were gone, and I could not leave in his shirt. The jeans fit like they were made for me. The sweater was so soft it felt like a hug, which only made me angers. I pulled the white shirt on first, under the sweater. It was a hidden layer of his armor. I ignored the food. I took my new sneakers, the ones from yesterday, and shoved my feet into them. I did not bother with the laces. I went to the door, unlocked it, and listened. Silence. The penthouse was vast and still. The marble floor was cold under my new socks. I padded quietly, following the path from last night toward the private elevator. That was the only way out, I knew. I made it to the living room. The elevator doors were just ahead, gleaming black panels set into a white marble wall. I was almost there. I was 10 feet away. "Where are you going?" His voice came from my left. I jumped, spinning around. He was in the kitchen, leaning against the massive marble island, a cup of in his hand. He was dressed for the day, in a crisp dark shirt and tailored trousers. He looked like he had been waiting. "I'm leaving," I said, my voice too loud in the quiet room. I tried to sound brave. "You said one night. It's been one night. I'm leaving." "You ate nothing," he said. It was not a question. "I'm not hungry?" "You're a terrible liar. Adriana?" My blood ran cold. He knew my name. I had never told him my name. I backed away, toward the elevator. "How do you know my name?" "I know everything about you," he said it simply, taking a sip of his. "Adriana Rossi, 18 years old, ran away from home in Bridgeport 2 weeks ago. Stepfather is a man named Frank Miller, a degenerate gambler with a violent streak. You were in the foster system from age 14 to 16, until he married your mother. She died last year. You have no one." I was not breathing. He had undressed me, not with his hands, but with his words, with his information. He had peeled back every layer of protection I had. "Stay away from me," I whispered, my hand fumbling for the elevator button. "You have nowhere to go," he said, his voice hard, but not cruel. It was just a fact. "You walk out that door. You'll be back on the street, or Miller will find you. Is that what you want?" "That's not your problem. It is now." He set the cup down and walked toward me, not fast, but with that same deliberate, heavy pace I remembered from the bus stop. I was pinned by his gaze. He stopped in front of me, so close I could smell the coffee on his breath and that same dark, spicy scent he always wore. "You're staying here." "No," I tried to push past him. He caught my arm. His grip was not painful, but it was absolute, like steel. I froze. This was it. This was the moment it all turned. "Let go of me." "Listen to me," he said, his voice low and tense. "You will stay in the guest room. You will eat the food my staff prepares. You will be safe here when you are strong enough. And when I have handled your stepfather, you can go." I stared at him, my mind reeling. "Handled? You do not need to worry about that." "And what do you want?" I spat the words at him, my fear turning to fire. "What's the price? Nico? Me? You want me to earn my keep? Is that it?" His eyes went black. His grip on my arm tightened for a second, and I flinched. His expression changed, the anger vanishing, replaced by something I could not read. He let go of my arm instantly. He stepped back, putting distance between us. "I will not touch you," he said, his voice flat, a vow. "I will not ask you for anything. I will not come into your room. You have my word. All I ask is that you stay. Stay until you have a safe place to go." I searched his face, looking for the lie. It was the most insane offer I had ever heard. It was too clean. "Why?" I whispered. "Why are you doing this?" He looked away from me, toward the massive window overlooking the city. "I have my reasons. They are mine." He looked back at me. "Do we have an agreement?" I was trapped. He knew my name. He knew about Frank. He had me cornered, not with violence, but with safety. It was the most terrifying cage of all. I gave a single jerky nod. "Good," he said. "Now go eat your breakfast." The next few days were a blur of surreal quiet. I lived in the guest room. I ate the meals that appeared on trays outside my door. I showered in the massive marble bathroom. I tried to read the books on the shelves in the living room, but I could not concentrate. He kept his word. He never touched me. He rarely even spoke to me. I would see him in the morning, dressed in one of his perfect suits, and in the evening, when he would sit in his office, the door closed. I started to ask questions. I could not help it. I found him one afternoon in the kitchen, and my curiosity got the better of me. "What do you do, exactly?" I asked, clutching a bottle of water. He was reading a report, and he did not look up. "I'm in hospitality. The Onyx Club, among other things," he said. "Like knowing everything about everyone?" He finally looked up, a ghost of a smile. "Information is a part of hospitality. You should know who your guests are." He deflected every real question, building a wall of polite, vague answers. I was a prisoner in a 5-star hotel, guarded by a man who refused to tell me who he was. One morning, I came out to the kitchen, and there was a piece of paper on the island. It was a job application, not blank. It was already filled out. My name, Adriana Rossi. An address, his address, a social security number, which I had not had since I lost my wallet. It was for a position as a barista at a small, elegant cafe downtown. "I don't know how to make coffee," I said, stunned. Nico walked in, tying his tie, his suit jacket off. "You'll learn. You start tomorrow, 8 in the morning. My driver, Rafe, will take you." "You just got me a job?" "You said you wanted to survive on your own," he said, shrugging into his jacket. "This is how you start." He paused, looking at the paper. "Unless you'd rather stay here." "No," I said quickly. "The job is good, thank you." I was going insane. One minute, he was a terrifying shadow. The next, he was a high-powered guidance counselor. I did not know which one was more dangerous. I never saw the other side of his life. Not really, but I felt it. It was in the silence of his men. It was in the way Rafe, his driver, would look at me in the rearview mirror, not with malice, but with a cold, assessing caution. Rafe was the only other person I saw regularly. He was older than Nico, with a face that looked like it had been carved from granite and a deep scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. He never spoke, except to say "miss" when I got in or out of the car. One evening, I was coming back from the cafe. The job was nice, normal. The smell of coffee beans and the simple, repetitive task of steaming milk was calming. For 6 hours a day, I was just a girl. When I got to the penthouse, the elevator doors opened and I heard a voice, a scream. It was muffled, coming from his office. It was a man's voice, sharp with pain, cut off short. I froze. Rafe was behind me. He gently put a hand on my back. "Go to your room, Miss." I heard another sound, a dull, heavy thud, and Nico's voice, not raised, but colder than ice. "You have one last chance to tell me who sent you." Silence, then another thud. I looked at Rafe, my eyes wide. He just stared at me, his expression blank. He was not going to stop me, but he was not going to let me pass. I turned and ran to my room. Locking the door, I slid to the floor. my back against it, my hands over my ears. Later, I heard the elevator open and close. The silence of the apartment returned. I did not see Nico that night. The next day, Rafe was waiting for me as usual, but before we got in the elevator, he spoke. "He's distracted," Rafe said, his voice a low rumble. I looked at him, confused. "What?" "The boss. You're a distraction." He was not looking at me, but at the elevator doors, as if weighing his words. He's got a war brewing with the Irish, and he's spending his time checking on baristas and playing house. I flinched. I didn't ask for this. "I know." He finally looked at me, and his eyes were old and tired. "But you're here. Men like Nico Romano, they don't have weaknesses. They can't afford them. A woman like you, a woman he feels responsible for, she's not a person, she's a target." He pressed the elevator button. "Just be careful. Miss Heat follows men like him, and you're standing too close." The doors opened, and we rode down in silence. His words echoed in my head all day. That night, I could not sleep. Rafe's warning, the sounds from the office. I felt the walls of my cage pressing in. I needed to know, I needed to see for myself. It was late. After 2 a.m, I crept out of my room. A light was on under his office door. I heard voices, low, serious. I did not mean to go in. I just wanted to listen. I leaned close to the door, holding my breath. "The shipment is at the port. The Irish are going to hit it. I know it." That was Rafe's voice. "Then we hit them first," another voice said, one I did not know. "No," Nico's voice, final. "We let them take it. It's a decoy. The real product is already in the warehouse. Let them celebrate, get sloppy. Then we end it." I leaned too hard. My hand slipped, and I stumbled against the door, pushing it open. I fell into the room. 4 men looked up. Nico at his desk, Rafe standing beside him, 2 other men in dark suits, sitting in the leather chairs I had woken up on. The room was thick with smoke, but that was not what made me stop breathing. The desk, it was not covered in reports. It was covered in money. Stacks and stacks of hundreds, bound in rubber bands. It must have been hundreds of thousands of dollars. And next to the stacks of money were guns. Not 1, not 2, at least 5 black pistols, laid out on a dark cloth, gleaming under the desk lamp. The room went utterly silent. The 4 men looked at me. I looked at the guns. Then I looked at Nico. His face was a mask of cold fury. He was not looking at me. He was looking at his men. "Get out," he said. The 2 men I did not know stood instantly and walked out, not even glancing at me. Rafe paused. "Boss." "Out, Rafe." Rafe looked at me, his expression a mixture of pity and "I told you so." He walked out, pulling the door shut behind him. I was alone with Nico, and the guns, and the money. I was shaking so hard I could barely stand. What is this?" I whispered, though I already knew. This was not hospitality. He did not move from his chair. He just watched me, his face unreadable. "You're a gangster," I said. The word felt stupid, like something from a movie. "I am," he said. "A criminal? The mafia?" "Yes." My legs gave out. I sank onto the edge of the sofa, my hands covering my mouth. The man who had given me his jacket, who had bought me clothes, who had gotten me a job, was a monster. The sounds from the other night, the interrogation. "You kill people." "When it is necessary," he said, his voice still calm. I started to cry, silent, terrified tears. "Oh God, I have to go." I stood up, but my legs were weak. "Sit down, Adriana." "No, I have to go. I can't." He stood up, and I flinched. Scrambling back, he stopped, holding his hands up, as if to show me he was unarmed, though we both knew it was a lie. "I told you I would not hurt you," he said. "You lied. You said you were in hospitality." "I did not lie. I own clubs. I own restaurants. I also own the ports, the unions, and half the politicians in this city." He walked. Not toward me, but toward the desk. He picked up one of the pistols, his hand moving with practiced, terrifying ease. He checked the chamber, then set it back down. He finally turned to me. His face was not angry. It was just tired. "I am not a good man, Adriana," he said, his voice quiet, echoing the words I'd heard him say to himself. "I live in a world that is violent and ugly. You want no part of it, I know that." He took a step toward me. I did not move this time. I was frozen. "But I meant what I said to you. I will not hurt you, ever. Whatever you saw, whatever you think I am, that part of me will never touch you." I looked into his dark eyes, and I saw the truth. He was a killer. He was a criminal. He was dangerous. And he was the only person who had ever, in my entire life, protected me. I ran from the office, turned down the hall to my room, and slammed the door, locking it. I collapsed onto the bed, sobbing. I cried for my mother. I cried for the lost, stupid girl I had been. And I cried because I was more terrified of leaving him than I was of staying. I must have cried for hours. The terror slowly faded, leaving behind a cold, hollow ache. It was almost 3 a.m. The apartment was silent again. I got up. I unlocked my door. I walked through the dark, silent penthouse. I did not know what I was doing. I was just moving, drawn by some invisible string. I went to his room. The door was open a few inches. A single lamp was on inside, casting a low, golden light. I pushed the door open. He was not in bed. He was standing by his own wall of glass, bare-chested, wearing only a pair of black sleep pants. He was looking out at the city, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. He heard me. He turned, his body tensing, surprise on his face. I did not say anything. I just walked toward him. He watched me, his eyes dark and searching. He did not speak. I stopped right in front of him. I could feel the heat radiating off his skin. I could see the hard lines of his chest, the muscles in his arms. I could see a faint white scar just above his collarbone. I was not afraid, not of him. "I don't know what to do," I whispered, my voice breaking. The tears started again, slow and hot. "I'm so scared." "I know," he said, his voice rough. "I should run. I should be terrified of you." "You should," he agreed, his gaze fixed on mine. "But I'm not." I raised a shaking hand. I hesitated, then placed it on his chest. His skin was warm. I felt his heart, beating steady and strong beneath my palm. He closed his eyes, just for a second. I did not know what I was doing. I was not thinking. I was just feeling. I rose on my toes, my hand still on his chest, and I pressed my lips to his. It was a clumsy, desperate kiss. It was just the press of my mouth against his. He went rigid, his whole body turned to stone. He pulled back, his hands coming up to grip my arms, hard. "Adriana, no," he whispered. His voice was a warning, a plea. "Don't." "Please," I whispered back, and I did not even know what I was asking for. I kissed him again, this time with more force. I was not offering him my body. I was offering him my broken pieces. I was telling him I did not care. He fought it. For a long second, he was completely still, his hands on my arms, holding me away. And then he surrendered. A sound, like a pained groan, tore from his throat. His hands released my arms, one hand tangled in my hair, tilting my head back, the other wrapped around my waist, yanking me against him, lifting me off my feet. His mouth crashed down on mine. It was not a kiss. It was a drowning. It was all the darkness, all the control, all the loneliness he held inside him, pouring into me. It was not gentle or tender. It was raw. It was desperate. It tasted of whiskey and anger and a deep, bottomless hunger that had nothing to do with me and everything to do with me. I clung to him, my arms wrapping around his neck, my fingers digging into his shoulders. I kissed him back with all the fear and confusion and desperate need I had. He broke the kiss, his forehead resting against mine, both of us breathing hard. "You don't know what you're doing," He panted. "I don't care," I breathed. He lifted me, his arms scooping under my legs. I wrapped my legs around his waist, holding on tight as he carried me. He did not take me to the bed. He pressed me against the cold glass wall, the city lights a glittering, blurred backdrop. His mouth was on my neck, his kisses hard, possessive. I arched back, my head hitting the glass. He lifted his head, looking at me, his eyes black with a need so intense it was frightening. He did not rip my clothes off. He was still in control. His hands were shaking, but his movements were deliberate. He pulled the green sweater off over my head, then the white shirt, tossing them to the floor. His hands were rough, calloused, but his touch on my skin was hesitant. He traced the line of my jaw, my collarbone, his fingers lingering on the old, faded bruise from my stepfather. His expression darkened. He kissed me again, but this time, it was different. The hunger was still there, but it was banked, replaced by a tenderness that broke my heart. It was slow, unhurried. He was asking, not taking. He lifted me again and carried me to his bed, laying me down on the cool, dark sheets. He stood there for a moment, just looking at me. Then, slowly, he shed his own pants, his eyes never leaving mine. He came to me, not with the fire of a moment ago, but with the quiet weight of a man who had been alone for a very long time. He held me, his arms wrapped around me, and just held me. We lay there, skin to skin, heart to heart, for minutes that stretched into an hour. When we finally came together, it was a whisper, not a scream. It was a slow, emotional merging. It was his hands in my hair, his lips on my forehead, and my tears, which started to fall again, quiet and steady. I wept. I wept for everything, for the girl at the bus stop, for the mother I lost, for the fear I had lived with for so long. He did not say, "It's okay." He did not shush me. He held me tighter, burying his face in my hair, and rode out the storm with me. He held me until the last sob tore itself from my chest, and I was left empty, quiet, and still. He pulled the covers over us, wrapped his arms around me from behind, and pulled me close against his chest. I felt his lips press against my shoulder blade. I fell asleep in the arms of a killer, and I had never in my entire life felt safer. When I woke up, the sun was streaming through the windows. I was alone in his bed. The sheets were tangled, and the indentation where he had been was still warm. The fear, the real-world morning light fear, crashed into me. What had I done? I had not just slept with him. I had given myself to him. I had tied myself to a man who killed people, who had guns on his desk, who had an entire world of violence waiting for him. Rafe was right. I was a target. I had made myself a target. This was not a rescue. This was a different kind of cage, a velvet-lined one, but a cage all the same. My clothes were in a heap on the floor. I scrambled out of bed, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dress. I pulled on the jeans, the sweater. I left his white shirt on the floor. I had to go. I had to go now. I ran, barefoot, from his room. I did not look for him. I ran to the guest room. His jacket, the first one he gave me, it was still on the chair, clean and perfect. I looked at it. It was the beginning and the end. It was the debt I could never repay. Taking it meant I belonged to him. Leaving it, I left it. I ran to the elevator, my heart in my throat. I jabbed the button. The doors opened with a soft chime. I stepped inside. I pressed the button for the lobby. The doors slid shut, and I was gone. The moment I woke up, I knew. The bed was empty. The warmth that had enveloped me all night was gone, replaced by a cold, sterile void. I sat up, my heart a block of ice in my chest. The sheets were tangled, the scent of her, of our intimacy, still hung in the air, a cruel ghost. I was alone. I threw the covers off. I was out of the bed in one motion, stalking through the penthouse, a cold fury building. Adriana? The guest room was empty. The bed was made. I opened the closet. His white shirt, the one she had worn, was on the floor. But the jacket, my jacket, the first thing I ever gave her, was on the chair. She had left it. She had taken the clothes I bought her, the new skin, but she had left the armor. She had left me. The rage was so pure it was almost calming. It was a familiar cold, a return to form. This is what happened. This is what came of softness. I grabbed my phone. Rafe, she's gone. There was a silence on the other end. Not surprise, just acceptance. Boss? Find her. My voice was quiet, dead. Shut down the bus stations, the train station. I want eyes on every street corner. Use everyone. I want her found. Now. I hung up. I stood in the middle of the empty, silent living room, the city lights just beginning to fade into the gray of dawn. I had let her in. I had let her see me. I had held her while she cried. And she had run. She had run from me, just like everyone else. But she was not everyone else. She did not get to run. Running was the only thing I knew. It was the only skill I had. I ran from the penthouse, my heart a frantic bird against my ribs. I ran, barefoot, until the marble lobby floor was behind me and the cold, wet pavement of the city street bit into my soles. I ran until my lungs burned. I did not know where I was going. I just knew I had to get away. Away from the guns, the money, the man who held me like I was precious and killed people in his office. I had a few dollars in my new jeans, the job at the cafe. I had received my first paycheck, $212. It was in my pocket. I pawned the sweater. The man behind the greasy glass counter barely looked at me. He just rubbed the soft, green cashmere between his fingers. It's nice. I'll give you 100. It's worth 5 times that, I whispered, my voice hoarse. Then sell it somewhere else. He started to push it back. No, fine, 100. He counted out 5 $20 bills. I took the money, my stomach churning. It felt like I was selling a piece of myself, the last piece of kindness he had shown me. I used the money to buy a pair of cheap sneakers at a discount store. Then I found a motel. The Sundown Inn. The N in the neon sign was burned out. The man at the desk had 3 teeth and did not ask for ID. I paid cash for 3 nights. The room smelled like bleach and old cigarettes. The carpet was sticky. The lock on the door looked like it had been kicked in more than once. I slammed the deadbolt, then wedged the only chair under the doorknob. I slid down the door, my back pressed against the wood, and I finally let myself breathe. I was free. So why did I feel so empty? I had done the right thing. I had escaped. I was not his property. I was not a pet. I was not a target. I stayed in that room for a whole day. I did not eat. I just lay on the lumpy mattress, staring at the water-stained ceiling. I missed the penthouse. I missed the silence. I missed the way he looked at me, like I was the only person in the world. I hated myself for it. On the second day, my money was running low. The $200 was already half gone. I had to find work. I left the motel, my new cheap sneakers rubbing my heels raw. I walked for hours. Every help wanted sign was a dead end. I was too young. I had no resume, no references. I was just another lost girl. Defeat was a bitter taste in my mouth. I was heading back to the motel, the early evening light turning the city gray, when a car pulled up beside me. A nondescript beige sedan. The window rolled down. A man in a cheap suit, too big for his shoulders, smiled at me. He had a clipboard. Adriana Rossi? My heart stopped. I stared at him, my whole body going rigid. My name is Mr. Childress, he said, his voice slick and friendly. I'm with the Department of Social Services. We've been looking for you. I'm 18, I stammered. You can't. I'm not in the system. Oh, we know, he chuckled. This isn't about that. This is about your stepfather, Frank Miller. My blood ran cold. We received an anonymous report, some very serious allegations. We're building a case. Adriana, we need your help. We're here to protect you. He opened the back door. If you could just come with me downtown. We need to get your statement, sign some papers. We have a safe house for you." I looked at him. His smile was too wide. His eyes were small and dark, and they were not looking at me with pity. They were looking at me like a prize. I glanced at the side of the car. There was a logo, City Department of Social Services, but the S was peeling at the corner. It was a sticker, a fake. I think I'll pass," I whispered. I turned and ran. "Hey, get back here!" I heard his door slam. I heard his footsteps pounding on the pavement behind me. He was yelling, but I did not hear the words. I was fast. Fear made me fast. I ducked into an alley, my sneakers slipping on wet cardboard. I vaulted a chain-link fence, my hands tearing on the metal. I was back in that feral state, the world reduced to one thing: escape. I ran for what felt like miles, my lungs on fire. I cut through a parking lot, scrambled down an embankment, and found myself trapped. It was a dead-end alley, piled high with old tires and garbage, the back of a bus depot. The brick walls were slick with grime. I spun around, panting, desperate. He was there, at the mouth of the alley, Mr. Childress. And he was not alone. Another man, built like a refrigerator, was with him. "You made this hard, kid," Childress said, wiping his sweaty face with a handkerchief. "We were trying to be nice." "Who are you?" I yelled, my voice shaking. "What do you want?" "Just a message for your boyfriend," the big man rumbled. He cracked his knuckles. I looked around, frantic. I saw it, a piece of rusted rebar, lying in the filth. I grabbed it, my knuckles white. It was heavy. "Stay away from me," I screamed, holding it out like a sword. Childress laughed. "She's got fight. I like that. He'll pay more for her if she's got fight." They advanced, slowly. I was crying, tears of sheer terror. I would not go back. I would not be used. I would not be a message. I swung the pipe. "I'll kill you." A sound, a screech of tires, so loud it echoed off the brick. A black SUV, one of Nico's, slid to a stop, blocking the alley. The doors flew open. Rafe got out, and two other men I had seen in the penthouse, men with shoulders as wide as the car. My heart leaped. He'd found me. He'd sent them to drag me back. The two fake agents stopped. They looked confused. "Who the hell are you? This ain't your business." Rafe did not even look at them. He looked at me. His face was stone. "Miss, put the pipe down." "No," I screamed. I was hysterical. "You're all together. He sent you. I won't go back. I won't." I swung the rebar at Rafe. He did not flinch. He caught my wrist in a grip so fast and strong. My fingers went numb. The pipe clattered to the ground. "Stop. We are here to help you." "Liar!" While he held me, his men moved. It was not a fight. It was an execution. The two other men descended on Childress and his partner. It was brutal. It was silent. Just the sound of fists on flesh, a sickening crack. In less than 10 seconds, both men were on the ground, unconscious or worse. I was screaming, fighting Rafe's iron grip. "Let me go! Let me go!" Enough. The voice. It cut through my panic, colder than the grave. A second car, Nico's black sedan, had pulled up behind the SUV. He got out. He was not in a suit. He wore dark jeans and a black t-shirt that stretched across his chest. His hair was a mess, his jaw dark with stubble. He looked like he had not slept. He looked wild. His eyes found me, and the fury in them was so potent it stopped my heart. He stormed toward me. Rafe let me go. I stumbled back, pressing myself against the filthy brick wall. Nico stopped, inches from me. He was breathing hard. He looked at the men on the ground. He looked at Rafe. "The Irish," Rafe said, his voice low, trying to grab her. Nico's gaze snapped back to me. He slammed his hand against the brick wall next to my head, so hard the wall shuddered. I screamed. "What were you thinking?" he roared. His voice was not human. It was a raw, primal sound. "Were you thinking at all? Do you have any idea what they would have done to you?" I broke. It was not a conscious decision. My body just gave up. The terror, the running, the exhaustion, it all came crashing down. I slid down the wall, my legs gone, and I sobbed. I buried my face in my hands and I wailed, all the fear and loneliness of the last 2 days, of the last 6 years, pouring out of me. The anger in him vanished. I felt it go, like a fever breaking. I felt his hands on my arms, gentle. He knelt in the filth, pulling me up, pulling me into him. I collapsed against his chest, my fists clutching his t-shirt. I cried, my whole body shaking. He held me, just held me, his arms a steel cage around me, his hand tangled in my hair, holding my head against his shoulder. He buried his face in my hair, and I felt him shudder. "You're okay," he whispered. His voice was rough, thick with an emotion I could not name. "You're safe. I've got you." We stayed like that for a long time, me sobbing, him holding me, the sounds of his men quietly, efficiently cleaning up the mess. Finally, my tears subsided into shaky breaths. He pulled back, just enough to look at me. His hands cupped my face, his thumbs wiping the tears and grime from my cheeks. His eyes were black, intense, and all the fury was gone, replaced by a raw, terrifying possessiveness. He leaned his forehead against mine. "You wore my name last night," he whispered, his voice a low, rough growl. "You don't get to disappear." The ride back to the penthouse was silent. I was wrapped in his suit jacket. He'd taken it from the back seat, my mind a complete, echoing blank. Rafe drove. Nico sat in the back with me, his arm around me, holding me against his side. He did not speak. He just held on. When the elevator doors opened to the penthouse, I tensed. I expected him to yell, to punish me. He led me to the sofa and sat me down. He disappeared and came back with a wet cloth, then knelt in front of me. He began to gently, methodically clean my face. He cleaned the grime from my cheeks, the tear tracks, the cut on my hand from the fence. I just watched him, numb. "They were from a rival family," he said, his voice quiet. "All the rage gone. The Irish, they've been trying to find a weakness, a way to get to me." My blood ran cold. Because of me? "You know, because you were out there," he said, his gaze meeting mine. "Because you left." He threw the cloth onto the table, his anger flashing again. "Just for a second. You ran from me, and you ran right into them. That is the last time you run. Do you understand me?" I looked down at my hands. "I can't stay here. Nico, I can't be this for you. I can't be the target." "You're not a target, Mary." His voice was flat. He stood up, towering over me. "You're mine. That's what you are now. And they just learned what happens when they touch what's mine." He paced the living room, a caged lion. "From now on, you are under my protection. Officially, my men know it, my organization knows it, and by morning, my enemies will know it." I looked up at him, my voice small. "What does it mean, to be under a mafia boss's protection?" He stopped pacing. He turned and looked at me, and his face was the most serious, the most terrifying. I had ever seen it. There was no warmth, there was no gentleness, there was only the cold, hard promise of a king. "It means," he said, his voice a blade, "that they will fear hurting you more than dying." Life found a new rhythm, a strange, tense, quiet rhythm. I was a prisoner, a princess in a glass tower. I did not go back to the cafe. I did not leave the penthouse. At first, I tried, but Rafe was always outside the elevator, not threatening, just there, a granite wall. Nico was different. He was harder. I would hear him on the phone in his office, and his voice was not the voice he used with me. It was clipped, brutal, and cold. He was giving orders that made my skin crawl, talking about shipments and consequences. He was at war with the Irish because of me. But with me, he was the opposite. He was gentle. He would come out of his office, the ice still in his eyes, and he would look at me, and it would melt. "Did you eat?" he would ask. He brought me books, stacks of them, novels, history, poetry. "You said you wanted to go to college. "Read," he ordered. We lived in the same house, but we orbited each other. We ate meals in silence. We had not touched. Not really, since he'd pulled me out of that alley. We slept in separate rooms. The tension was a living thing in the apartment, a thick, heavy blanket of things unsaid. The memory of that night, of my body against his, was a constant, humming current between us. One night, I could not stand it anymore. The silence, the waiting, the being kept. I went to the kitchen. The private chef had left a beautiful, cold meal of salmon and asparagus. I stared at it, and I felt a wave of anger. I was not a doll to be fed. I opened the massive stainless steel refrigerator. It was stocked with a terrifying amount of food. I dug around. I found pasta. I found canned tomatoes, a head of garlic, an onion. In a small pot on the windowsill, I found fresh basil. I started to cook. I did not know what I was doing. Really, I was just moving. I chopped the onion. My eyes watering, I minced the garlic. I sautéed them in olive oil, the smell filling the sterile kitchen. It was the only thing my mother had ever taught me. It was the only real thing I knew how to do. I was stirring the sauce, lost in the simple, repetitive motion, when I felt him. I turned. He was standing in the doorway of his office, his suit jacket off, his tie loosened. He was just staring. He looked stunned, like he'd walked in to find a deer in his living room. "You're cooking," he said. His voice was quiet, full of disbelief. My cheeks flushed. I was bored. The food your person left was... I didn't want it. I gestured with the spoon. "It's just pasta. You probably hate it." He did not say anything. He just walked to the kitchen island and sat on one of the stools, watching me. I finished the sauce. I boiled the pasta. My hands were shaking. I was cooking for a killer. I was making spaghetti for the devil. I put a plate in front of him. I made one for myself. We sat at the huge, empty dining table, a football field of polished wood between us. He took a bite. He did not look at me. He chewed slowly. He closed his eyes just for a second. "It's good," he said. "You don't have to lie." "I'm not lying, Adriana." He took another bite. "It's the best thing I've eaten in a long time." We ate in silence for a few minutes, but it was a different silence, a warmer one. "You said you wanted to go to college," he said, pushing his pasta around with his fork. "What did you want to study?" I shrugged. "I don't know, English, history, something." Quiet. I looked at him. "It's a stupid dream." "It's not stupid," and he said, "Dreams are not stupid." "What about you?" I asked. "Bold? What did you dream about before this?" He stopped eating, and he looked at his plate. "I dreamed of being left alone. I dreamed of having enough power that no one could ever touch me, or the people I cared about. I dreamed of being safe." He looked up, and his eyes were so old. Some dreams are just cages in disguise. The conversation faded. We were done eating. The plates were empty, but we did not move. We just looked at each other, across the vast, empty table. The laughter, the small, fragile warmth we had built died in my throat. His eyes were dark. They were not looking at me like a girl he had to protect. They were not looking at me like a target. He was looking at me like a man. "Thank you for dinner," he said, his voice a low vibration. "You're welcome." My voice was a whisper. He stood up. I thought he was going back to his office, but he did not. He walked around the table, his footsteps echoing on the marble. He stopped behind my chair. I could feel his body heat. I could smell his scent, that dark, clean, expensive smell. I did not breathe. He placed his hands on my shoulders. His grip was warm, heavy. His thumbs began to rub slow, small circles on my collarbone. I leaned my head back, my eyes closing. "Nico," I whispered. "It was a plea." He leaned down. His lips brushed my ear, sending a jolt straight down my spine. "I've missed you," he murmured, his voice rough. "Even when you were right in the next room. I've missed this." He turned my chair gently. He held out his hand. I took it, and he pulled me to my feet. We stood in the empty dining room, my hand in his. He did not kiss me. Not yet. He just looked at me. His free hand came up, cupping my face. His thumb traced my bottom lip. "I tried to stay away," he said, his voice raw. "I tried to do the right thing, to give you space, to let you heal. I am not good for you, Adriana." "I don't care," I breathed. "I don't want space." His face hardened. "I do." He kissed me. It was not the desperate, drowning possession of the first time. This was a choice. His choice. His lips were firm, slow. He was not taking, he was claiming. It was an invasion, but it was a gentle one. It was a kiss that spoke of control, of power, of a deep, intense hunger that he had been holding back. He was tasting me, learning the shape of my mouth, and I opened for him, a flower turning to a brutal sun. My hands went to his chest, gripping the front of his shirt. He broke the kiss, his forehead resting against mine. "You're sure?" he whispered. I did not answer with words. I pulled his face back to mine. This time, the kiss was harder. He lifted me. I wrapped my legs around his waist, my body remembering his. He held me, his arms like steel bands, and I held him, my arms around his neck. He carried me. He did not stop at my room. He carried me down the hall to his. He kicked the door shut. He did not lay me on the bed. He pressed me against the wall, his mouth on mine, his body flush against me. He unbuttoned his shirt, his eyes never leaving mine. He was watching me, gauging my reaction. I watched his hands. They were calloused, strong, capable of such violence, capable of such tenderness. He shed his shirt. He stood before me, his chest bare, his eyes black with a need he was no longer trying to hide. "You are so beautiful," he said, the words a low growl. He came to me, but he moved slow. Every touch was deliberate. His hand slid under my t-shirt, his palms warm on my skin. He traced my ribs, his touch light, sending shivers everywhere he went. He lifted the shirt over my head. He unfastened my jeans, pushing them down, and I kicked them away. He laid me on his bed. The sheets were dark gray, cool against my back. He stood over me, looking at me, and in his gaze, I was not a stray. I was not a victim. I was his. He came down to me, his body covering mine. He kissed me, slow and deep. His hands moved over me, not with haste, but with a deliberate, agonizing patience. His lips left my mouth, trailing down my jaw, my neck. He kissed the hollow of my throat. He kissed the scar on my shoulder. It was not a frantic coupling. It was a slow, intense, emotional claiming. He was marking me, branding me with his mouth, with his hands. He was making me his, in a way that had nothing to do with words. And when he finally came inside me, it was a promise. It was a vow of protection, of possession. It was not gentle, but it was not rough. It was absolute. I wrapped myself around him, meeting his intensity, giving him back every dark, broken piece of myself. I was his. I knew it. And for the first time in my life, I was not afraid. We fell asleep, tangled in his dark sheets, the city a silent, glittering witness. I was safe. Miles away, in a dark, smoky bar in the Irish Quarter, the two men I had fought in the alley were nursing their broken bones. They were reporting to their boss, a man with eyes the color of ice. "He's got her," the man named Childress said, his voice thick through a swollen jaw. "Romano himself. He's got her locked in that tower of his." The boss smiled, a thin, ugly motion. He took a long drag from his cigar. "Good, a king in a tower. But kings have to leave their castles, and a man with a new, precious toy loves to show it off." He blew a cloud of smoke toward the ceiling. "We'll wait. He thinks he's won. He thinks he's safe." He looked at his men. "He just gave us the bait, and soon, he'll bring her right to the trap." The girl who was afraid to make eye contact was gone. I did not know when she left. Maybe she'd been washed away in the marble shower. Maybe she'd been burned away by the simple, domestic act of making pasta. Or maybe she'd been suffocated in Nico's arms, replaced by someone who could breathe in his world. I was still a prisoner, but the cage was gilded, and the door was, for the most part, open. Even if Rafe stood guard outside, I spent my days reading. Nico had ordered a small library for me, books on history, on art, on literature. I devoured them. I was no longer just surviving, I was learning. One afternoon, Nico found me in the living room, curled on the massive white sofa, filling out forms on a laptop. "What is that?" he asked. He'd come in silently, his suit jacket off, his sleeves rolled up to reveal his strong forearms. "Applications," I said, my heart thumping a little. It felt audacious. For college, just online courses, community college, for the spring. He stood there for a long moment, just watching me. I expected him to laugh or to tell me it was pointless. He knew I had no transcript, no high school diploma. He just nodded. Good. He left. A few hours later, he returned. I was still at the laptop, struggling with a financial aid form that seemed designed to make people give up. He placed something on the coffee table in front of me. It was a small, black notebook. The cover was leather, soft and unmarked. It was bound by a simple strap. I looked at him, confused. "You're filling out digital forms," he said, his voice quiet. "You're applying for a future, but you need a place to plan it." I picked it up. It was heavy, the pages thick and creamy. "Write the life you want, Adriana," he said. He tapped the cover with one finger. "Write it down, every detail. What you want to study, where you want to live, what you want to be. And then we'll make it happen." I looked from the book to his face. He was utterly serious. He was not just giving me a gift. He was giving me permission to have a future. My eyes burned. "No one's ever," I started, but my voice broke. "I know," he said, and the gentleness in his voice was almost my undoing. He did not touch me. He just watched me hold the book. "It's time someone did." 2 weeks later, he came to my room. I was in the black notebook, sketching out a ridiculous, impossible 5-year plan. "I need you to come with me tonight," he said, leaning against the door frame. I looked up. "Come with you where? To the club?" "No, a fundraiser. The Children's Hospital benefit. It's at the museum." My stomach tightened. "Out? In public?" "Yes." His expression was unreadable. "You can't stay in this tower forever. I'm not ashamed of you. Adriana, I want you by my side." The words "by my side" echoed in the room. This was not a request to be a barista. This was not an order to stay in my room. This was a promotion or a summons. "People will be there," I whispered. "Reporters, people who know you." "They will," he confirmed, "which is why you need to look the part." He motioned to the bed. A long, black garment bag was lying across it. My hands shook as I unzipped it. The dress was impossible. It was a deep, midnight blue, almost black. It was silk, cut simply, elegantly. It had no back, and a neckline that was modest but strong. It was not a dress for a girl. It was a dress for a woman. "It's beautiful," I breathed. "Put it on, we leave at 8. Getting ready felt like armoring up for battle. A woman I'd never seen before came to the penthouse to do my hair and makeup. She was silent, efficient, and never met my eyes. She twisted my hair into a complicated, elegant knot at the back of my head. She painted my face, giving me dark, smoky eyes and a pale, neutral mouth. When she was done, I looked in the mirror. The feral girl from the bus stop was a ghost. The barista was gone. The girl in the oversized shirt was a memory. The woman in the mirror was a stranger. She was polished, cold, and beautiful. She looked like she belonged in his world. She looked like she belonged to him. Nico was waiting by the elevator. He was in a black tuxedo. It fit him so perfectly he looked like he'd been born in it. He looked like a king, dark and dangerous. His eyes swept over me, From my hair down to the simple black heels the woman had provided, he did not smile. His expression was intense. He held out his arm. "Adriana," he said, and my name in his mouth was a brand. I slipped my hand into the crook of his arm. His muscle was tense beneath the fine wool. The museum was a blaze of lights. Cars were lined up for blocks. I could hear the buzz of the crowd before we even got out. "Stay close," Nico murmured, his hand covering mine, holding it tight to his arm. "Do not talk to anyone unless I speak to them first. Do not drink anything you don't watch the bartender pour, and do not leave my side. Not for a second, The fear was back, cold and sharp. This was not a party. This was a battlefield. Rafe opened the door. The moment we stepped out, it began. Flashes. So many flashes, they were blinding. A wall of sound. People shouting. Mr. Romano, over here." "Nico, who's your date?" We walked up the massive stone steps, Nico staring straight ahead, his face a mask of bored indifference. He was the eye of the storm. I just tried to keep up, my heels clicking, my hand gripping his arm. I heard the whispers as we passed, a new kind of sound under the shouts. "Who is that? I've never seen her before. She's young. Look at him. He hasn't taken his eyes off her." And then, one voice, a reporter with a sly look, loud enough for me to hear clearly. "That's Nico Romano's new girl, the boss's girl." The boss's girl. I faltered. The name hit me like a slap. It was not his partner. It was not his date. It was his girl. A possession, a thing. Nico's hand tightened on mine. He leaned in, his lips brushing my ear. "Keep walking. Breathe. You are with me. You are safe." The ballroom was magnificent. Chandeliers dripped crystals from a ceiling painted with angels. A string orchestra was playing. The most powerful people in the city were there. Politicians I recognized from the news, judges, billionaires. And they all smiled when Nico walked in. They all came to him, shaking his hand, their eyes sliding to me, assessing, curious, afraid. Nico introduced me. "This is Adriana." He said it simply. He did not say my girlfriend. He did not say my ward. Just Adriana. It was enough. He was proud. I could feel it. His hand never left the small of my back. He kept me tucked against his side, a human shield. "You see, Adriana," he murmured, as a senator clapped him on the back and walked away. "They are all my friends. This is the other side of the business, the clean side." "They're all scared of you," I whispered, taking a sip of champagne that a server had offered. "That," he said, a small, cold smile touching his lips, "is why they are my friends." He guided me through the crowd. I was starting to relax. The music was beautiful. The champagne was making me feel warm. I was on the arm of the most powerful man in the room. For a girl who had slept under a bench, it was a terrifying, intoxicating feeling. We stopped near the grand staircase to listen to the orchestra. Nico was watching me, not the room. "You look beautiful," he said, his voice low, "for me only." "You're just saying that because I'm wearing a dress that probably cost more than a car." "I'm saying it because it's the truth." I smiled, a real smile. I felt, for 1 second, normal. Then I saw it. High up, on the balcony overlooking the ballroom, a small, red light, just a flicker like a firefly. I tilted my head. It was gone. I blinked. It was back. It was moving, sweeping across the crowd. I watched it. It was hypnotic. It moved past the mayor. It moved past a woman in a diamond necklace. And then it stopped. On my chest, right over my heart, I stopped breathing. "Nico," I whispered, my hand clutching his tuxedo. He did not look at me, and he was already moving. He had seen it, too. His eyes were scanning the balcony, his body tensing. The red dot was still on me. I heard a sound, a flat, distant crack. At the same instant, a champagne flute on a tray 10 feet to my left exploded. Someone screamed. Down, Nico roared. He did not push me. He threw himself at me, his body a solid wall, tackling me to the hard, polished marble floor. He landed on top of me, his weight crushing, protective. I screamed, my ears ringing. Another crack. A chip of marble exploded from the pillar right where my head had been. "Nico!" I shrieked. Pandemonium. People were screaming, diving under tables. The orchestra had stopped. "Stay down. Do not move," Nico commanded, his body shielding mine completely. I felt a jolt, a grunt torn from his throat. "Nico?" I twisted, looking up at him. His face was a mask of cold, white-hot rage. "I'm fine," he gritted out. "You're not. You're—" I saw it, a dark, wet stain, spreading on the shoulder of his white tuxedo shirt. "You're bleeding. You're shot." "It's nothing. A graze." He looked over his shoulder. "Rafe, now." Men swarmed us, Rafe and 3 others, guns out, forming a human wall around us. "Code Red," Rafe yelled. "Get him out. Get the package out. Go, go." Nico was hauled to his feet. He grabbed my arm, yanking me up with him. He was bleeding, a lot, but he refused to let Rafe take me. "I've got her," he snarled, pushing me behind him. We moved, not walking, running, a phalanx of dark suits, pushing through the screaming, terrified crowd. We were not going to the front door. Rafe shoved open a service entrance, into the kitchens. "This way, boss, the car is in the alley." We ran through the chaos of the kitchen, past terrified staff. Nico was breathing hard, his hand gripping mine so tightly my bones ached. He would not let me go. He was bleeding. He was in danger, but he would not let me go. We burst into the alley. A black armored sedan was waiting, the engine roaring. "Get in!" Rafe shoved me into the back. Nico piled in after me, landing half on top of me, shielding me even in the car. Rafe jumped in the front. The tires squealed as the car launched into the street, blowing through a red light. I was shaking, my teeth chattering. "Nico, your arm! My God, your arm!" His entire left shoulder was soaked. The blood was black in the darkness of the car. "It's fine," he panted, his eyes scanning the street behind us, looking for a tail. "Rafe, not the penthouse." "The Southside safe house, boss?" "Yes. Go." Nico finally looked at me. His face was pale, his skin slick with sweat. He reached out with his good hand, his fingers tracing my jaw. "Are you hurt?" he whispered, his voice raw. "Did they hit you?" No, I'm fine, but you—" "It doesn't matter." He slumped back against the seat, his eyes closing for just a second. "They were aiming for you. They were aiming for you." The rage in his voice was more terrifying than the gunshot. The safe house was a concrete box. It was in the basement of an anonymous-looking office building. No windows, one steel door. The walls were bare. There was a bed, a small kitchen, a metal desk, and an emergency light glowing in the corner. The moment the door was locked, Nico's control broke. He stumbled, leaning against the wall, his breathing ragged. "The med kit, Rafe, in the locker." "Boss?" "Get it, and get on the phone. I want to know who. I want to know how. I want their heads. Now." Rafe, his face grim, retrieved a metal box and tossed it on the bed. He pulled out his phone and walked to the far corner, his voice a low, angry murmur. Nico just stood by the wall, his head bowed, the blood dripping onto the floor. "Take off the jacket," I said, my voice shaking. He looked at me. "Take it off. Now, Nico, let me see it." He winced as he shrugged out of the ruined tuxedo jacket, letting it fall. His shirt was a disaster. "Sit," I commanded. He looked surprised, but he sat on the edge of the bed. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely open the med kit. Gauze, antiseptic, tape. "This is gonna hurt," I whispered. "Adriana." "Shut up!" I grabbed a pair of scissors from the kit and, with a shaky hand, cut his shirt away from the wound. It was a deep, ugly graze, a furrow of raw flesh across the cap of his shoulder. It was bleeding, but the bullet had passed through. I poured the antiseptic onto a wad of gauze. Bite down on something." He just watched me. I pressed the gauze to the wound. He hissed, his whole body going rigid, his fist clenching, but he did not make another sound. I cleaned it, my hands covered in his blood. I was crying, the tears hot and silent. "I told you," I whispered, my voice thick. "I told you I was a target. This is because of me." "This is not your fault," he gritted out, his eyes closed. "This is my world. I brought you into it. He stopped. He let out a long, ragged breath. He looked broken. "There was someone else," he said, his voice so quiet I could barely hear him over Rafe's murmuring. "A long time ago. My sister." I stopped wrapping the bandage. I looked at his face. "Her name was Sophia," he said, his eyes hollow, staring at the concrete wall. "She was 17. My father. He was the boss then. He had enemies, the old guard. They wanted to send him a message, to prove he was weak." He swallowed, his throat working. "I was supposed to be watching her. I was 20. I was stupid. I left her alone for 1 hour, just 1 hour, to meet some girl. When I came back, they had been there. They left her as a message." I covered my mouth, a sob escaping. "I found her," he whispered. "I was the one who found her. I failed. I was supposed to protect her, and I failed." He finally looked at me, and his eyes were raw with a pain that was 20 years old. "I will not fail again, Adriana. I will not lose you. I don't care what it costs. I don't care who I have to kill. I will not let them touch you." I finished taping the bandage. My hands were stained with his blood. I looked at him, at this powerful, terrifying man who was bleeding in a concrete bunker because of me, and I finally understood. I knelt on the floor in front of him, in my ruined, blood-spattered dress. I put my head in his lap, and I let the fear go. "I'm not scared," I whispered, my voice muffled by his trousers. He tensed. "What?" I looked up at him. "I'm scared of this, of the guns, the blood, but I'm not scared of you. I know you're what you are, but you're the only person who ever. Whoever what? Whoever kept me safe." I touched his face, my bloody hand leaving a smear on his cheek. "I'm not scared of you, Nico. I'm scared of losing this. I'm scared of being alone again." He pulled me up, his good arm wrapping around my waist, lifting me onto his lap. I straddled him, my ruined dress bunching around my hips. We were a mess, blood, sweat, and tears. The air was thick with the smell of antiseptic and cordite. The only light was the single, harsh emergency bulb. Outside, I could hear a new sound, rain. It was pounding on the street, far above us. He kissed me. It was not a gentle kiss. It was not a tender kiss. It was a kiss of raw, desperate, clinging life. It was a promise. It was a vow. His mouth was hard on mine, his tongue sweeping inside, and I kissed him back with all the terror and all the relief I had. He tasted like blood and fear and a desperate, dark hope. His hand fumbled with the zipper on the back of my dress. He pulled it down, his movements rough, impatient. He pushed the silk off my shoulders, bearing me to the cold air. "You're mine," he whispered against my mouth. "You are mine!" "Yes," I breathed. "Yes." His hand was on my skin, his good arm holding me so tight I could barely breathe. His lips left my mouth, trailing down my neck, his teeth grazing my collarbone. I pulled his ruined shirt over his head, wincing as it brushed the bandage. He did not care. We made love in that cold, concrete room, under the harsh glare of an emergency light, with the sound of the rain and Rafe's voice in the background. It was not slow. It was not tender. It was a staking of a claim. It was an anchor in the middle of a war. He whispered promises against my skin. "I will never let you go." "I'm not leaving," I whispered back. They were lies. We both knew it. He could not promise my safety. I could not promise to stay. They were beautiful, desperate lies, and they tasted like hope. He held me all night. I slept in his good arm, my head on his uninjured shoulder, his blood still drying on my skin. He did not sleep. He just watched the door, a pistol on his lap, guarding me. I woke to the gray light of morning. We were still in the safe house. Nico was asleep, finally, his face exhausted in the dim light. Rafe was gone. I slipped out of the bed, my body aching. I found Nico's shirt, the one I had cut, and pulled it on. It was stiff with his dried blood. I went to the small kitchen, looking for water. On the metal desk, there was a file. Rafe must have left it. It was open. I saw a list of names, a roster. At the top, it said Irish. Below it, names: Finn O'Malley, Kieran Walsh. And then, at the bottom, under a separate heading labeled Loose Ends, I saw a picture. A grainy, black and white surveillance photo. A man I knew, a man I would never forget. Frank Miller, my stepfather. Beside his name, a simple, handwritten annotation, ASAP. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands went numb. This was not just a list of his enemies. This was a hit list, and my stepfather, my personal monster, was on it. Nico had not just been handling it. He had been planning to kill him. The fragile peace of the night, the whispered promises, the taste of hope, it all curdled in my stomach, turning to bile. I grabbed the paper. I stormed back to the bed. Nico, he was awake instantly. The pistol was in his hand before his eyes were even open. He saw me, and he relaxed. Adriana. What's wrong? I held up the paper. It was shaking in my hand. What is this? He sat up, his expression hardening. The lover was gone. The boss was back. It's a list. He's on it, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Frank Miller, my stepfather, you were going to kill him. He's a problem, Nico said, his voice flat. I remove problems. Why, he's my problem, I screamed, the word tearing out of me. He's my past, my monster, not yours. He hurt you. He will not hurt you again. And you get to decide that? You get to just erase him? You get to fix me by killing someone else? I was pacing now, my rage a living thing. You gave me that notebook. You told me to write my own life, and then you go behind my back and try to murder my past? You don't get to do that. You don't get to clean me up. I am not one of your loose ends. He stood up, and he was in pain, his shoulders stiff, but he was still a mountain. He towered over me, his face a mask of cold frustration. He did not understand. He genuinely did not understand why I was angry. Then tell me how I protect you, he said, his voice a low, dangerous growl. You tell me how to keep you safe from him, from them, from the entire world, because I won't watch you suffer again. I will burn this city to the ground before I let anyone put their hands on you. So you tell me, Adriana, how do I protect you, if not like this? His question hung in the cold, concrete air of the safe house, a raw, desperate challenge. How do I protect you? I stared at him, at the blood on his shirt, the exhaustion in his eyes, the cold, hard fury that was his answer to everything. He would burn the world down to keep me safe, but he would never understand that I was suffocating in the ashes. Not like this, I whispered, my voice shaking with a rage that felt as deep and as cold as his. You don't get to murder my past, Nico. You don't get to wipe the slate clean with a bullet. That's my monster. That's my fight. He is a stain, Nico snarled, his good hand clenching into a fist. I'm trying to clean you. I am not a mess you get to clean up, I screamed. Snatching the hit list from his desk, I tore the paper in half, then in quarters, my hands ripping through my stepfather's grainy photo. I am not a project. I am not your sister. The words hit him harder than the bullet had. His face went blank. All the color draining from it, the rage vanished, leaving something hollow and terrible in its place. He recoiled as if I had physically struck him. Adriana, he started, his voice a rasp. No. I threw the pieces of the list at his feet. You want to know how to protect me? You let me go? You let me do this? You can't kill him for me. It won't work. It won't fix anything. It will just mean you stole the last piece of my life from me. He just stared at me, his eyes dark, unreadable. The silence stretched, filled only by the sound of the rain far above. He was the most powerful man I had ever met, and in that moment he looked utterly, completely lost. He gave a single, curt nod. "Rafe," he called, his voice dead. "We're going back." The ride to the penthouse was a suffocating, frozen silence. We sat on opposite sides of the armored sedan, a canyon of marble and blood between us. When we got to the apartment, I did not go to his room. I did not go to the guest room. I went to the massive front closet, where a small bag I'd been given for toiletries was still stored. I took the cash I had earned from the cafe. It was still in the pocket of the jeans I'd worn that day. It was not much, a few $100s. I waited. I waited until I heard the shower running in his room. I waited until I knew Rafe had gone downstairs to coordinate the war that was brewing. This time, I was not running from him, I was running for me. I did not take the main elevator. I took the service elevator, the one the catering staff and cleaners used. I walked out into the basement garage, past the row of black, identical cars, and I did not look back. I took a cab to the bus station, the one not far from where he had found me. I bought a one-way ticket to Bridgeport, Connecticut. The ride took 3 hours of my reflection staring back at me from the dark, greasy window. I was not the same girl who had fled this town. That girl was barefoot and starving. This girl was dressed in expensive jeans, her hair still holding the ghost of $1,000 styling. I looked like a queen in exile, but I felt like a soldier going home for the last, final battle. Nico's fury was a cold, sharp thing, but it was not for her betrayal. It was for her. He had found the empty closet, the missing cash. He had known instantly where she was going. He had known, with a terrifying, soul-deep certainty, that she was walking back into the lion's den. "She went after him," he said to Rafe, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. He was already dressing, pulling on a black t-shirt, his bandaged shoulder protesting. "Boss, let me send a team. We can have him packaged and at the bottom of the sound before she even gets there." "No." Nico's voice was absolute. He checked the clip on his pistol, slamming it home with a sickening click. "She said it was her fight. She wants to choose." He looked at Rafe, his eyes black holes of terror and rage. "We follow. We stay in the shadows. We do not move. We do not breathe unless he touches her. If he puts one hand on her, Rafe, I will burn that building to the ground with him inside it." "And the girl?" Rafe asked quietly. "Will be safe," Nico said, shrugging into a dark leather jacket. "Get the car, and get me the file, the other file, the one that buries him." Bridgeport was as gray and as hopeless as I remembered. The bus wheezed into the station, and the air itself felt heavy with bad memories. I walked. I knew the way. My feet carried me, as if by memory, through the cracked sidewalks, past the boarded-up windows, to the one place in the world I never wanted to see again. The apartment building. It sagged, a monument to decay. I walked up the 3 flights of stairs, the smell of stale beer and old garbage growing stronger. My heart was not pounding. It was still. It was a cold, heavy stone in my chest. I was not afraid. I was just done. I stood in front of the door, apartment 3. B. I raised my hand. I knocked. A long silence. Then a shuffling sound, the scrape of a deadbolt. The door creaked open. He was there. Frank Miller, and he was a monster, but in the harsh light of the hallway, he just looked pathetic. He was in a stained t-shirt, his belly hanging over a pair of old shorts. His face was puffy, his eyes bloodshot. He smelled like cheap whiskey. He stared at me, his eyes narrowing in confusion, then in a dark, familiar anger. "Adriana!" His voice was a gravelly bark. "What the hell are you doing here? You got some nerve, you little bitch, running off." "I'm not here to stay, Frank," I said. My voice was clear. It did not shake. I was surprised. It was a voice I had never heard before. It was the voice I had found in Nico's penthouse. He scoffed. "Oh, yeah? Where are you gonna go? Back to your rich boyfriend? Did he dump you? Finally figure out what you are?" "I'm here to tell you that you're done," I said, standing tall. I did not move. I just held his gaze. "You don't get to hurt me anymore. You don't get to hurt anyone else. It's over." His face, puffy and pale, began to turn a deep, ugly red. He was a bully, and bullies only have one weapon: fear. I was not afraid, and it made him furious. "You think you can talk to me like that?" he spat, stepping into the hallway. "You think you're better than me now? You're nothing. You're trash, just like your mother." "I'm not," I said simply. "I'm not afraid of you. Frank, you have no power over me, not anymore. I'm just here to tell you. Goodbye." I turned to walk away. That was my mistake. I had shown him my strength, but I had forgotten his cowardice. He would never let me have the last word. I heard him lunge. I felt his hand wrap around my arm, his fingers digging in, a brutal, familiar grip. He yanked me back, spinning me around and slamming me against the opposite wall. The drywall cracked behind my head. "You don't walk away from me," he roared, his face inches from mine, his breath hot and sour with booze. "You're mine. You've always been mine." His other hand came up, grabbing my throat. He was squeezing. Spots danced in my vision. "Frank, stop," I choked out, my hands clawing at his thick wrist. He laughed. "Or what? Your boyfriend ain't here, is he? It's just you and me." The door to the stairwell, 3 floors below, slammed open. It was not a sound. It was an explosion. Footsteps, heavy, fast, taking the stairs 2, 3 at a time. It was an impossible speed, a sound of pure, unadulterated rage. Frank froze. His eyes widened. He let go of my throat, but still held my arm. A black shadow appeared at the top of the stairs. It was Nico. He was not in a suit. He was in the leather jacket and the black t-shirt. He was breathing hard, not from a run, but from a fury so profound it seemed to vibrate in the air. His bandaged shoulder was a stark white against the black. And in his hand, steady as a surgeon's, was his pistol. It was aimed directly at Frank Miller's forehead. His face was not angry. It was not emotional. It was a mask of cold, perfect death. He had come here to kill this man. "Let her go," Nico said. His voice was not a human sound. It was a growl, a promise of violence. Frank was paralyzed. He was a bully, and he was staring at a killer. His hand was still on my arm, his knuckles white. I said, "Let her go." Nico took a step forward. His finger tightened on the trigger. I could see the knuckle whiten. He was going to do it. He was going to kill him. He was going to save me. And in doing so, he was going to destroy the one thing I had come here to claim, my own victory. "No!" I screamed. The word echoed in the tiny, filthy hallway. Both men looked at me, Frank, in terror, Nico, in stunned confusion. "No more blood!" I panted, my voice cracking. "Nico, no! Please, I choose how this ends." I looked at Frank, at the pathetic, terrified man who had haunted my entire life. Not with a bullet, with this. Nico stared at me. His arm was shaking. His entire body was vibrating with the need to pull that trigger. He was a man who solved problems. And the problem was right in front of him, but he looked at me. He saw my face, my tears, my desperation. He saw my strength. He had all the power in the world, and in that moment, he gave it to me. He lowered the gun, just an inch, but it was enough. He took his other hand, his left hand, his good hand, and pulled his phone from his jacket. He pressed a button. He did not even look at it. "Rafe, now." He put the phone away, and he looked at Frank. His eyes were still dead, but the gun was no longer the threat. He was... "You have 10 seconds to let go of her arm," Nico said, his voice flat. Frank's hand dropped from my arm as if it had been burned. He scrambled backward, falling into his own apartment. Far below, I heard them. Sirens. Not one. A dozen. They were not distant. They were here. "What did you do?" I whispered to Nico. He did not look at me. He kept his eyes and his gun trained on Frank. I made a few calls. The apartment door burst open. Not Nico's men. Uniformed police officers, 2, then 4, guns drawn. "Frank Miller, get on the ground, hands behind your head, now!" "What is this?" Frank shrieked, his hands in the air. "I didn't do nothing. She attacked me." "We have a warrant for your arrest, Mr. Miller," the lead officer said, "on charges of distribution of narcotics to a minor. We also have an anonymous tip about a weapons cache." "What? That's a lie." "Then I guess you won't mind if we look around," the cop said. Nico stepped back, pulling me behind him, shielding me with his body as the police swarmed the apartment. "How?" I whispered, my face pressed into his leather jacket. It smelled like him, like cold night air. "My men were here an hour before you were," he murmured into my hair, his voice for me alone. "They redecorated, planted enough heroin to send him away for 20 years. The forged witness statements from 2 local kids were filed this morning. I was going to have him arrested tomorrow, after I knew you were safe. He had done it. He had buried him. Not with a bullet, but with the system. He had used his power, his darkness, to create a form of justice." We watched as they dragged Frank Miller out, him screaming and cursing, his eyes wide with a confusion he would never solve. He was gone. Just like that, the monster in my closet, the ghost in my past, was just a pathetic man in handcuffs. Nico put his gun away, and his arm came around me, pulling me tight. "It's over, Adriana," he whispered. "He's gone. For good." I started to cry, not in terror, not in sadness, in relief. It was a tidal wave, a purging. I was free. I was finally, truly free. The silence in the penthouse was a new kind of torture. We had returned, and I had gone straight to the guest room. I locked the door. He did not knock. Days passed, 1, then 2. Food would appear outside my door, left by a staff I never saw. I would not touch it. I stayed in the room, sleeping, staring at the glass wall. I had won. I had faced my monster. I was free. So why did I feel so empty? I had my life back. I had my future. I had the black notebook he had given me. And now, I could finally write in it. But the one person who had given me the strength to do it was on the other side of a locked door. I had rejected his violence. I had rejected his protection. I had, in his mind, rejected him. The third night, it must have been 3 a.m. I could not sleep. The silence was too loud. I could not breathe. I got up. I unlocked my door. I opened it. He was there. He was sitting on the floor in the hallway, his back against the opposite wall. He was not in a suit. He was in the same black T-shirt and dark pants he'd worn in Bridgeport. A glass of whiskey sat on the floor next to him, untouched. His head was bowed, his hands clasped between his knees. He looked defeated. He was not the boss. He was not the king. He was just a man, sitting outside a locked door. He heard me. His head snapped up. He stood, in one fluid motion. He looked wrecked. His eyes were bloodshot. He had not slept. We just stared at each other. The hallway was a battlefield, and we were the 2 survivors. Not sure if we were on the same side. "You're okay," he said. It was not a question. It was a prayer. "I'm okay," I whispered. I walked to him. I did not run. I just walked, my bare feet silent on the cold marble. I stopped in front of him. He was a mountain of a man, dark and dangerous, and he was trembling. I raised my hand, slow. I touched his face. His jaw was rough with stubble. He flinched, just a little, at my touch. "You scare me," I whispered. His eyes closed. A look of pure, unadulterated pain crossed his face. He thought I meant his gun, his violence, the man he was in that hallway. "I know," he breathed, his voice broken. "No," I said, my own voice cracking. My fingers traced the line of his jaw. "You scare me, because I don't know how to live without you." His eyes snapped open. The pain was gone, replaced by a raw, stunned disbelief. He did not kiss me. He did not speak. He just pulled me to him. His arms wrapped around me, crushing me against his chest, and his face buried in my hair. I felt a shudder rack his entire body, a sob he refused to let out. He held me so tight I felt like my ribs would crack, and I did not care. I wrapped my arms around his waist, and I held on, my face pressed against his shirt. "I thought I lost you," he whispered, his voice thick, unrecognizable. "When you ran from the safe house, I thought that was it. Then in that hallway, when you told me not to, I thought I had lost you." "You didn't," I cried, the tears I had been holding back finally coming. "You listened. You let me win." "You were always going to win, Adriana," he murmured, his hands in my hair. I don't know how to protect you any other way." "You don't have to," I wept. "Just don't leave me." "Never." He lifted me, his arms scooping under my legs as if I weighed nothing. I wrapped my arms around his neck, burying my face in his shoulder. He did not take me to the guest room. He carried me to He laid me on his bed, the dark sheets cool against my skin. He did not turn on the lights. The only light was the city, 1,000,000 miles below, a carpet of glittering diamonds. This time, there was no anger. There was no desperation. There was no claiming. This was a surrender. He undressed me slowly, his hands shaking, his eyes never left mine. He was looking at me, really looking at me, as if seeing me for the first time, not as a victim, not as a project, but as his. I undressed him, my fingers fumbling with his t-shirt. I pushed it off his shoulders, my fingers tracing the bandage. "It's just messy," I whispered, looking at all his scars, his dark, powerful body. "So am I," he said. We came together with a sense of quiet, desperate relief. It was slow, it was tearful, it was messy. His kisses were not possessive, they were reverent. His hands were not claiming, they were worshiping. He held my face, his thumbs wiping away my tears as he moved, his forehead pressed to mine. There were no walls, there were no defenses. It was just him, and just me, and all the broken, dark, and healing pieces of us. It was a promise, made in silence, to stay. Afterward, we lay tangled in the sheets, my body exhausted, my mind quiet. For the first time in my life, my mind was quiet. I was curled against his side, his good arm holding me close. I was wearing one of his white t-shirts. It was huge. I murmured, my voice sleepy, my lips against his chest. "You gave me your jacket. I'm keeping this one too." He chuckled, a low, rough sound that vibrated through me. His lips pressed to the top of my head. "You can have all of them." I fell asleep, wrapped in his arms, in his shirt, in his world. I was safe. The ringing was high-pitched, jarring. It was not his normal phone. It was a burner, a satellite phone, kept in the nightstand drawer for emergencies. It ripped us both from sleep. Nico was awake instantly, his hand grabbing the phone. I sat up, clutching the sheet to my chest, my heart pounding. He flipped it open. "What?" He listened. I watched his face, the peace, the softness, the man who had held me while I cried. He vanished. His skin went pale, his jaw clenched. His eyes went flat and cold and dead. The boss was back. He closed the phone with a snap. "Nico?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "What is it? What's wrong?" He looked at me. He looked at me with a new, cold dread, and the safety I had felt just moments before evaporated. "It's the Irish," he said, his voice a blade of ice. "They hit the warehouse. They hit the club. It's not a message anymore." He threw the covers back and stood, all the power and darkness returning to him in a wave. "War is here." The war was not a whisper. It was a roar. Nico's phone call had ended, but the silence he left in his wake was louder than any gunshot. He had not moved from the bed for a full 10 seconds. He just sat there, staring at the wall. The man who had held me all night completely gone, replaced by the cold, calculating king. They're calling you weak, I whispered, my voice trembling. I was still clutching the sheet to my chest. Because of me. They're not calling me weak, he said, his voice flat, dead. He stood up, his body a map of controlled power, his bandaged shoulder a stark white emblem of the fight that had already begun. They're calling me predictable. They think they know what I love. They think that makes me easy to break. He walked to his closet. He did not pull out a suit. He pulled out a pair of dark, reinforced tactical pants. He pulled out a black, long-sleeved shirt made of some thick, heavy-duty material. My blood ran cold. This was not a meeting. This was a battle. Nico, I scrambled out of the bed, grabbing his shirt from the floor and pulling it on. It was stiff with his dried blood from the safe house. Nico, look at me. Don't go. I ran to him, grabbing his arm. This is what they want. They want you to come out. They want you to fight them on their terms. You said it yourself. They're trying to bait you. And it worked, he said, shrugging on the shirt, his face a mask of stone. He was already moving to the safe in his closet, pulling out a vest, body armor. No, I shrieked, the sound tearing from my throat. You can't. Please, this is how you die. This is how you leave me. Just like... I could not say her name. I could not say Sophia. He stopped. He turned to me, his hands still on the straps of the vest. His eyes were black, but the deadness was gone, replaced by a deep, aching fire. He walked to me, and he put his hands on my shoulders, his grip hard, grounding me. Adriana, look at me. I met his gaze, my tears blurring his face. I am not your stepfather. I am not leaving you to be a victim, and I am not my father. I will not hide and let them take what is mine to send a message. He pulled me closer, his forehead resting against mine. I have to end this, not just for me, for us. I am the only one who can... Then let me come, I whispered, my hands gripping his shirt. I won't be her. I won't be the girl left behind in a safe house, waiting to find out if you're dead. I will not be your sister. Nico, I'll fight. I'll load the guns. I don't care. But I will not wait. His expression hardened. The softness vanished. No. You can't make me. Yes, I can. His voice was absolute. Rafe is waiting downstairs. He's taking you to the Southside safe house. You will stay there. You will not leave. You will not argue. You will wait until I come for you. And if you don't come? I cried, hitting his chest with my fist. It was like hitting concrete. What then, Nico? What then? Do I just stay in that concrete box forever? Am I just the last thing you left behind? He grabbed my hand, his grip crushing, stopping my assault. He pulled me so close our noses were almost touching. His dark eyes were burning into mine. I gave you my name, Adriana, he whispered, his voice a raw, jagged growl. You were a ghost I found at a bus stop. I gave you my jacket. I gave you my home. I gave you my protection. But you gave me a reason. You gave me a life. You took my name, and you made it mean something other than blood and fear. He cupped my face, his thumbs wiping away my tears. I am coming back for you. They think they've weakened me, but they don't understand. Love doesn't make a man like me weak. It makes him focused. It makes him lethal. He kissed me. It was not a kiss of passion. It was a kiss of sealing. It was a brand. It was the taste of whiskey and gunpowder and a desperate final promise. It was brutal, and it was fast, and it was everything. He pulled away, his breathing ragged. Go, now! He turned his back on me, a final, sharp dismissal. He began strapping the vest on. Nico, I sobbed. He paused. He reached into the pocket of the leather jacket he had worn in Bridgeport. He pulled out a single, white, sealed envelope. He turned, and he held it out to me. His face was a mask again. What is this? I whispered, my hand trembling as I took it. It just had my name on it. Adriana, written in his sharp, black ink. You demanded to know what happens if I don't come back, he said, his voice flat. That's what happens. Do not open it, not unless I am gone, not unless... Rafe confirms it. My legs gave out. I would have fallen, but he caught me, his arm a steel bar around my waist. Be strong, Adriana, he whispered, his lips brushing my ear. Be the woman who faced down her monster. I will see you at dawn. And then he was gone, and he was walking away, out of the room, his footsteps heavy and final. I stood there, clutching a letter that was either a promise or a death sentence. I heard his voice in the living room, low and clipped. Rafe, get her out. If anyone, and I mean anyone, comes within a mile of that safe house, you put them in the ground. Do you understand? Rafe's low rumble. Yes, boss. The door opened. Rafe was there, his face a grim, granite slab. He did not look at me. He just held the door. Miss, it is time. The safe house was a tomb. The moment the heavy steel door slammed shut, I was in absolute silence. The concrete walls, the single cot, the harsh emergency light, it was the same room where I had kissed him, where I had patched his shoulder. Now it was just a box. I clutched the letter. I sat on the cot. I did not move. I waited. The silence was the worst part. It was not empty. It was full of my fears. It was full of her, Sophia. I finally understood his terror. I finally understood his obsession with protecting me. He had not just been trying to save me, he had been trying to save himself. He had been trying to rewrite the one failure that had defined him. And I was his second chance. I paced. The concrete floor was cold under my bare feet. I was still in his t-shirt. I had not bothered with pants. I was a prisoner in his armor, waiting for a verdict. 1 hour passed. It felt like a year. 2 hours. The silence was screaming. I thought about the letter. My fingers traced the seal. I could open it. I could know. But I had promised. It was the last promise I had made him. 3 hours. It must have been near dawn. The silence was so complete that I thought I had gone deaf. Then I heard it. A sound. Outside the door. A key. Scraping in the heavy lock. My heart stopped. I was not breathing. It was not dawn. It was too soon. He was not supposed to be back. The door creaked open with a heavy, metallic groan. It was Rafe. He was not okay. His face was covered in soot. There was a long, deep cut over his left eye, and his shirt was torn. He was leaning against the doorframe, his chest heaving. I could not speak. I could only look at him, my eyes screaming the question. He met my gaze. His grim old eyes were full of a terrible, bone-deep exhaustion. "It's done, miss," he rasped, his voice thick. I still could not breathe. It was a trap. They were waiting. A full force. O'Malley himself was there. He wiped a smear of blood from his mouth with the back of his hand. They were ready. They thought he was coming in blind, full of rage. But the boss, he's been planning this for weeks. Ever since Bridgeport. "Rafe," I whispered, my voice a prayer. "Where is he?" Rafe's face crumpled, just for a second, and in that instant, my world ended. "He sent us in the front," Rafe said, his voice thick. "A decoy. He and a small team went in the back, through the tunnels. He knew they would be focused on the frontal assault." "Rafe, where is he?" I screamed, my voice cracking. "He got to O'Malley," Rafe said, his eyes on the floor. "He ended it. The Irish are broken. Their leadership is gone. It's over. For good." "Oh, you're not answering me," I shrieked, my hands clutching the letter so hard my knuckles were white. Rafe looked up. He finally looked me in the eye. "He's alive, but he's hurt. Bad. He took a few in the chest. His vest caught most of it, but one got through. I did not faint. I did not scream. I just moved. I pushed past him, out of the bunker, out into the gray, pre-dawn light of the alley. "Where is he?" I demanded. "St. Jude's Hospital," Rafe said, following me. He's in surgery, but he's alive. Adriana, he is alive." The hospital was a blur of white lights and the smell of antiseptic. Rafe had gotten me there in 5 minutes, the armored car scattering traffic like leaves. I ran through the emergency room. still in Nico's t-shirt and my bare feet. People stared. I did not care. Rafe led me to a private waiting room. They're still working on him. I paced. I walked for what felt like hours, back and forth on the cold, sterile tile. I still had the letter. I had not let go of it. Finally, a doctor, his green scrubs dark with sweat, came in. "Family of Mr. Romano?" "I am," I said, my voice sharp. The doctor looked at my bare feet, at my wild hair, and then at the look in my eyes. He nodded. "He's out of surgery. It was complicated. He was shot twice. The vest stopped the first one, but it broke 3 ribs. The second, it missed his heart by an inch. We repaired the damage. He lost a lot of blood." "But he's alive," I stated. It was not a question. "He's alive," the doctor confirmed. "He's weak, but he is a very, very strong man. He's in recovery. You can see him, but only for a few minutes." His room was dark, and it was quiet. The only sound was the steady, rhythmic beep of the heart monitor. He was a ghost. He was so pale. His dark hair a stark contrast to the white sheets. An IV was in his arm. Bandages were wrapped tightly around his chest. He was breathing, a shallow, painful-looking rasp. I walked to the bed. My legs were shaking. I touched his hand. It was warm. "Nico," I whispered. His eyelids fluttered. He did not open them, but he was there. I sat in the chair beside his bed. I looked down at the envelope in my hand. "Adriana, you told me not to open this," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Not unless you were gone. And you're not gone. You stupid, stubborn man. You're not gone." My hands were shaking as I tore the seal. I pulled out a single sheet of paper, his handwriting. "Adriana, if you are reading this, I did not keep my promise, and for that, I am sorry. I have failed you, the way I failed Sophia. But you are not her. You are stronger than I ever was. You are the strongest person I have ever known. The girl who faced down her monster with nothing but her own will. I have left everything to you, the penthouse, the club, the accounts, everything. Rafe has the details. It is yours. It is blood money, all of it. But it will keep you safe. Use it, burn it. I do not care. Just live. Go to college. Write that life you talked about in your black notebook. Be happy. Find someone good, someone better than me. Do not mourn me. I have been a dead man walking for 20 years, ever since I lost my sister. I did not know what it felt to be alive again until that night, at the bus stop. You were so small, so broken and so full of fire. You saved me. Adriana, you were not my weakness. You were my redemption." My hand was over my mouth, a sob tearing from my chest. The tears were dripping onto the paper, smudging the ink. I looked at the last 2 lines. "If I live, I want a life with you. If I die, I already had one." "I'm here," he rasped. My head snapped up. His eyes were open, just slits, but he was looking at me. "I'm here, Nico," I wept, grabbing his hand. "I'm right here." "You read it," he whispered, his voice a ghost. "You're not dead," I sobbed, laughing through the tears. "You don't get to die." "Good," he murmured. A faint smile, a shadow, touched his lips. "Because I want that life." He closed his eyes, the drugs pulling him back under. But his hand tightened in mine. 6 months. 6 months, and the city was different. The Irish were gone. Their empire crumbled, their territories absorbed. The Romano family was stronger than ever. But it was not Nico's family anymore. He recovered. It was slow. It was painful. The broken ribs gave him more trouble than the bullet wound. But as his body healed, something else changed. He held a meeting in the penthouse. Rafe and his other lieutenants. I made them coffee. I did not hear the whole conversation, but I heard the end of it. "It's yours, Rafe," Nico said. His voice was strong again. "You've earned it. You've been the one holding it all together for years. I am tired. She is my future. This is my past. He left the criminal life. Just like that, he walked away. He transferred everything. He kept the penthouse, and he kept the money he had in clean accounts. He cut the strings, one by one, until he was just Nico. We opened the bookstore. It was on a quiet, tree-lined street downtown. We called it the 3rd Street Page. It was small. It was full of dark wood shelves, comfortable leather chairs, and the smell of old paper and fresh brewed coffee. I was taking classes online, but this was my real passion. We lived in the penthouse. It was still our sanctuary, but it was quieter. Nico. He learned to be quiet. He would sit in the cafe for hours, in a chair by the window, not watching the door, not looking for threats, just reading. He read history. He read poetry. He drank the coffee I made him. But he was still Nico. The chandeliers in the bookstore, they were beautiful, ornate, wrought iron things. They also had the highest resolution, $36,000 security cameras hidden inside them. He had left the life, but he would never, ever stop protecting me. One rainy Tuesday, a year after he had found me, I was in the back room of our apartment, sorting through old boxes he had moved from his club, and I found it. In the bottom of a box, carefully folded, was the original cashmere jacket, the one he had put over me at the bus stop. It still smelled faintly of him, that dark, spicy, clean scent. I picked it up. It was so heavy. I walked out to the living room. Nico was on the sofa, reading, the rain lashing against the glass wall. He looked up as I entered, a soft, slow smile touching his face. He was not the monster. He was not the king. He was just my Nico. I held up the jacket. I found this. I walked over to him, my heart full. I held it out. "You gave me this," I whispered, "when I had nothing." He set his book down. He took the jacket, his fingers tracing the fine wool. He looked at it, and I knew he was seeing that night. The rain, the broken feral girl under the bench. He looked up at me, his eyes full of a love so deep it still stole my breath. He took my hand and pulled me down, kissing my forehead. "And now," he said, his voice a low, gentle rumble, "you have everything." We walked. It was a habit of ours. After we closed the shop, we would walk, hand in hand, through the city. It was raining tonight, a soft, gentle mist. We were not talking. We just were. We turned a corner, and there it was. The bus stop. The plexiglass was cracked. The bench was empty. No, not empty. I stopped. My hand tightened in Nico's. He looked at me, then followed my gaze. Under the bench, trying to make herself small, trying to hide from the cold, was a girl. She was young, maybe 16. She was shivering, her arms wrapped around her knees, her shoes soaked through. I looked at her, and I saw myself. Nico did not say a word. He just watched me. He knew. I let go of his hand. I was wearing a simple, warm, cloth coat. It was not cashmere. It was not armor. It was just warm. I walked over to her. She flinched, her eyes wide with fear, ready to run. "Hey," I said, my voice soft. "You're freezing." I did not wait for an answer. I took off my jacket. I crouched down, the way he had, and I draped it over her small, shaking shoulders. She stared at me, her mouth open, stunned. I just smiled. I did not offer her a place to stay. I did not offer her my name. I just gave her a moment of warmth. I stood up. I walked back to Nico. He held out his hand. I took it. He slipped his arm around my shoulders, pulling me into the warmth of his own heavy overcoat. We turned, and we walked away, leaving the girl and the past behind us. Thank you so much for listening to our story. We truly hope you enjoyed it. We would love to know where you're listening from. So please, drop a comment and let us in on your corner of the world. If you loved this story, please consider subscribing to Mafia Romance Stories for more tales of love and danger. And finally, we would love to read your thoughts, so feel free to share them in English. We appreciate every single one of you.